Are you guys finally ready for this one? I know I am. A lot, and I do mean a lot, has happened in my life in the past 3 months, but it's mostly sorted out, but I don't care because I'm ready to build this thing. And so if you guys remember the unboxing video I did a few months back, the biggest complaint people have with this car, or I guess any alpha model product, is the panel lines. I don't think they're that bad at all. These things are plenty deep. They're spaced evenly apart. They're not wide or thin in some areas. They look good. There was only one problem, and this panel line here just had a little bit of debris in it. And that is as easy to clean up as dragging the back of your hobby knife blade down the panel line. See, look, it's all cleared out. Alrighty, so with all of that body work out of the way, we could finally move on to adding all the little fiddly bits, like this rear wing spoiler thing. And I've said it before, and I will say it again. Cast resin, 3D printed resin, and even your clear parts, they have zero flex in them. They are extremely brittle. If you guys use sprue cutters to do this, what you're actually doing is you're pinching the pieces off and you're crushing them until they actually break off. And that could be kind of violent. So do yourself a favor, spend the $4, buy a razor saw, and cut them parts off. It also makes for a cleaner cut, so less sanding, and then your parts will fit perfectly like this. From there, I'm going to do a quick sanding with some 3200 grit. This is smooth enough to not leave any gouges or deep scratches, but still abrasive enough to leave a good key for the primer and paint to bite into. And do not let that bottle fool you. This is actually full of acetone, 100% acetone. And this stuff will not eat into the cast resin. All it's doing is cleaning off all the mold release and any sanding dust that we have left over. This step is critical if you're doing anything cast, because the mold release paint will not stick to it. Trust me. So when it comes to resin, either cast or 3D printed, what you need is an etching primer. Anything that says metal primer on it really will work you just fine. And being that this is resin, you guys could go a little bit heavier on the primer and the paint without having to worry about anything damaging or crazing any plastic. So I got a few coats of primer in there, gave that plenty of time to dry, then I'm going to move on to pre-shading. This, by definition, is not pre-shading. I just don't know what else to call it. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm just applying all my panel line accent now. So later on when I do the base coat, it will drown out some of the black and give kind of just a hint of gray. That way it will look like there is shadow for all these parts that are supposed to open. And of course, we are using our tried and true splash paints. It's a Ferrari, it's red. Rosso Corsa. You guys know the drill by now. And from here, we're just going to kind of start from the bottom and work our way up. This car has a whole lot of overhanging parts, and it could be easy to miss some of those. So when you go from the bottom up, well, you're almost guaranteed not to miss anything. And being that this is resin, I could have gone quite a bit heavier with this first coat, but, well, I'm used to working with plastic, and old habits die hard. I should also mention this footage is sped up at 3 times the normal speed. It just took me a while to paint this. This body is extremely complex. There's a lot of little nooks and crannies. You just got to make sure you do not miss any of them. Ultimately though, this ended up only taking 2 coats. I gave it about an hour to dry, then I started unmasking. I want the roof of this thing to be black. Now luckily there is a definite body line that separates, I don't know, I guess the upper part of the body and the lower part of the body. I don't really know where the separation between the roof and the body is, so I'll just call it the upper and the lower. Either way, it made masking extremely simple. But once I got my outline done and defined, I'm just going to go back and really burnish down those edges of that tape so there's 0 chance of bleed through. And do not forget about those body line, guys. That would be a rookie mistake. Your fingernail makes quick work of those. Off camera, I just masked off all the rest of it, and I'm going to go over it with some Tamiya X1, some gloss black. I know, normally I don't do this in gloss, but it's all I had. Tamiya black is getting really hard to find for some reason. The method here though, guys, I've talked about it dozens of times. If you just would a real light coat right around that tape line, as it dries, it'll also create a gasket of sorts. That just is more protection against bleed through. So with the light coat done, I'm just going to set this aside to kind of just flash off 2-3 minutes. That's really all we need. Once that's dry enough and I'm confident none's going to bleed through, I'm just going to go back now and just start laying on the paint. Well, let's see how we did. Yeah, that turned out fairly well. I could live with that. Now, do note there is some orange peel on the roof. That's okay, we'll deal with that later, because now it's time to do some decal work. Before we go much further, I do have to note that these decals, man, they are awesome to work with. For as thin as they are, they do not fall apart, they do not disintegrate. When you move them, they actually move instead of just tearing. Now the instructions are not very clear. They just tell you where the decals goes, not how it lays out. But once you get it in place and start, I don't know, brushing it out, it will conform and fit exactly where it needs to go. I'll be honest, I was a bit skeptical a flat decal was going to fit down in there, mold around all those shapes, and fit body lines perfectly. Yeah, good job, Alpha Model. Really, good job. Now this decal here, it kind of fought, well, not really fought me. I didn't know where it was supposed to go. I knew from the instructions it goes down here on the slower lip area, but I had a whole lot of overhang and then it didn't fit on the other side. Now this is going to wash out all the paint, but it will show the decal perfectly. So let me flip on the light here. To figure out exactly where this goes, I basically went to Google and just typed in an F8 Tributo front bumper. And bam, hey, that decal actually laid out perfect. Exactly how it's supposed to go. It follows the body line here perfectly, and there is a bit of an overhang from the previous decal, but the grain and the carbon fiber, it matches seamlessly. And the rest of the carbon fiber decals, well, kind of hard to mess them up because there is only one place that they will go. This is another one of those decals. When I looked through the instructions, I'm like, there is absolutely no way. But when you lay it out, it fits around that ring perfectly. So with that piece installed, that is the very last of the carbon. Oh no, an accident. If I was better at this, I would insert one of them clips from Dark Souls where it's just like, you died. But I am not good at this, so we'll just forget that happened and move on to some more decals. And with that guy in place, that is the last of the decals for the body. And I figured I'm going to have some clear mixed up. This rear diffuser is all carbon, so I might as well do the carbon on it now just to spray it with a clear all in one go. So, yeah, yay, more carbon fiber work. I will admit though, it is not that bad. As I mentioned earlier, these decals, they're precision cut, they fit, and they fit extremely well. There is none of that clear overhang on them, so everything, it just fits. You just push them into place, swab out all the moisture, and that's it, they're done. I really wish all decals were like this, man. This is actually somewhat enjoyable. So this is it for the decals on the flat parts, so to speak. I still have the slats to do the fins, but I'm going to take a small break here and I'm going to lock everything in right now with some setting solution. I'm doing this because I have knocked this off that little holding stick probably 30 times. And I do know when I get to the slats, I'm actually going to have to handle this thing with my bare hands. And I don't want the decals being damaged. So once I get this applied and it dries, there's nothing other than sanding these decals off that will remove them. So I let that stuff sit up and dry overnight, and here we are the following night. That stuff is locked in. It is safe to handle. But yeah, it is just the same as before. Just put the decal in place and, well, it fits. It just fits. Nothing else we need to do other than just get it positioned right. Another reason it took me so long to get this video out, well, I had to wait on the postman to deliver the goods. And where I live, out here in the middle of nowhere, rural Kansas, it takes a minute to get some stuff delivered. None of that matters though, because what I've been waiting for is finally here. I had to order some new 2K clear. Now the catalyst or the hardener for this stuff, it's only got a shelf life of about 6 months once it's opened. And I realized when I was shooting it on the drag pack, it wasn't acting like it normally does. And I didn't want to risk it on this build, so I ordered some more. Anywho, what you're seeing in the background there is I'm just doing a very light misting over the decals as to prime them, as so to speak. This stuff is extremely harsh and what we call chemically hot. If you guys just go in guns blazing from the start and hose it on, it will literally melt the decals. So just build it all up in light layers. You'll have nothing to worry about. In general though, what I've always done and had the best luck with is I will do 2, maybe 3 mist coats of this clear. You don't really want full coverage right now. You just want the body to be, well, sticky, I guess. I believe it was Paul over at ISM who said that basically what we're doing is we're just spraying super glue. That is a rather good analogy. So when we build up these smaller, lighter base coats to make it sticky, what we're doing is we're kind of keying the body. So when we go back in with the final wet coat, it's going to stick and it's not going to run. It should also be mentioned, since we are doing light mist coats, the previous coats, they're essentially dry, so we're not laying wet paint over wet paint. Having it dry inconsistent like that, that is what causes orange peel. And for some reason in the final editing, I did not speed up me shooting the wet coat here. Yeah, that is basically it. From here on out, I'm just going to let it dry for a good 3 or 4 days, and I'll go back with some flattening, wet sanding, and polishing. And that is it for this one though, guys. So if you made it this far, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. And I do believe I'm bound by YouTube law to say like, subscribe, and have a good night, guys.